Hey everybody, welcome back to Just Keep Parenting. I'm back at the house, and just wanted to check in and see how everybody's doing. We finished up the 7 skills of success, and so today I thought we might talk a little bit more about creating a cycle of success. And one of the things that Dr. Bailey talks about in the book that we've been talking about for a few weeks, Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline, right? The 7 basic skills for turning conflict into cooperation. One of the things she talks about is we have to figure out how to create a cycle of success, right? Because what we offer to others, we strengthen in ourselves, right? And by learning to discipline ourselves, I learn how to guide my children, right? And so as I guide my children more effectively, I become more disciplined. So it really is this cycle of success that we build for ourselves. She calls it, it's a beautiful self-perpetuating cycle of love in motion. And that just kind of, if you can think about what the imagery that it creates for you, right? This is a beautiful self-perpetuating, right? So it kind of reminds me of those water wheels that you see in farms that the water hits it and it just keeps moving forward, right? That's the imagery that comes up for me. A beautiful self-perpetuating cycle of love in motion. And I just think that's pretty much amazing. I've watched a lot of social media the last couple of weeks about giving thanks, right? And that to me describes this, right? A beautiful self-perpetuating cycle of love in motion. As we have, as many people have, gotten on the bandwagon to hashtag give thanks, it's just amazing to me to see how grateful everybody is, right? Or how that gratefulness has helped us to be more positive in our life. And that's kind of what Dr. Bailey is talking about, I think. So as we kind of get back to this creating a cycle of success, there's always 2 choices, right? As we're parenting, as we're helping children grow. And we have 2 choices. We can fear them to do what we'd like them to do, or we can love them to do what we'd like them to do. And as we choose love, then we instill positive values in our children, right? Because so many times as we choose fear to discipline, to guide our children, then they grow up and that's what they start to do, right? Is they instill that fear into their children, into their relationships. So one of the things she talks about is we all have discipline encounters, right? With children, whether it's our own children, whether it's our nieces and nephews, whether it's children in a church congregation, whether it's children in the neighborhood, or the children, that we teach. And so usually this discipline encounter is triggered from, Merry Christmas to you too, is triggered from a child's need or a parent's need, right? And usually parents are looking for some kind of compliance, right? This is what you need to do. Wanting the child to do something other than what the child is doing at the time. But from the child's perspective, right, it's triggered through lack of information about how to communicate in a socially acceptable behavior, right? One of the things that I work with the teachers a lot on is so many of these kids have never been taught how to communicate successfully. And so we're trying to help them figure out not just communication, but culture things, right? And how to help them establish friendships, how to help them establish relationships within their family, right? Because if somebody's teasing me as a child, right, usually I name call back or I hit, right? Because I don't want them to tease me anymore. But I don't often have the skill set to be able to handle it any other way, right? Sometimes we whine, right? Even as adults, but as children, they whine in order to get what they want, right? Because there again, sometimes they don't know, they don't have that skill set to understand how to do that appropriately, right? The other thing that sometimes we find them doing is manipulating, right? If they want a friend, they manipulate, right? Well, you can come to my birthday party if you'll be my friend, or if you'll, And so we have to help them understand that there's a better way than manipulating them. They want help, right? Sometimes they throw a fit. I know with the coats, right? I can't do this. Right? They'll say it. I'll say, well, what do you want me to do? Well, help me. Okay, well, there's a way to ask me. So if you'd like me to help you, you can say, Miss Dory, can you help me put on my coat, please? Miss Dory, can you help me put on my coat, please? You bet. I'd love, in fact, I'll help you. Put your fingers in here and pull the sleeve out, right? Because it's inside out now. You can't put it on when it's inside out. So you have to get the coat the right way so you can put it on, and then it won't make you upset. You won't have to throw a fit because you know how to take care of your own problem, right? And then just how do they handle big feelings? So all of these things are going on inside the children, right? And they're trying to figure out how to communicate about these things. So then my job and your job as caregivers of these children is to teach them without throwing a fit of our own. Sometimes my fit is in a soda, or it may be in a drive, or sometimes I may say to my students, my big students, I'm just gonna go to the restroom, I'll be right back, right? Because that's me getting myself in a good place so that then I can come back and have a teaching encounter with these children, right? And so as a parent, as a teacher, sometimes I confuse the children's wants and their needs, right? Because they want a lot of things. We all want a lot of things, don't we? But they may want candy, right? But my job as their parent, as their caregiver, as their teacher, as their aunt, is to help them figure out how to delay that gratification, right? Or handle disappointment, right? I've been to the store many of times with nephews and nieces, and they're like, Aunt Dory, will you buy me this? I'm like, no, that's not why we're here today, buddy. I know, but I just really want it. Well, I really want a lot of things in this store, sweetie, but we don't have the money today. And Dory doesn't have this in her budget. Do you know what a budget is? That's how much money I can spend today, right? So giving them information so that they understand why, yeah, they're still going to be disappointed, right? I'm disappointed. But helping them to understand that. So we need to remember to address their needs and not their wants, right? So as we look back at this cycle of success, there's two things. There's a compliance encounter, right, which is I have a need, right? And there's a teaching encounter, which is the child has a need. And so helping them figure that out, right, with those 7 basic skills that we've been talking about. We're going to talk more about it next week, but I wanted you to this week to just start to notice, right? Notice, is this a teaching encounter or is it a compliance encounter? Right? Is it my need, right? Because if it's my need as an adult, it's usually about compliance. They need to be doing something that they're not doing. If it's the child's perspective, they usually have a need, right, to figure out how to manage all of these things that we as adults typically know how to manage, right? So then it becomes a teaching encounter for them. So I just want you to take notice as you have encounters with your children, with those that are around you, because even with adults, right? Whether it's a compliance encounter or a teaching encounter, and just start to take note of that, because I think once we start to ponder that, once we start to think about that and figure out, oh, this really is a teaching moment for me. It's not a compliance. And then I can decide, is this a need or is this a want, right? And that'll help us have a better relationship with them and be able to love them better, right? Rather than instill that fear into them. So anyway, appreciate you joining us today. Pass it along to anybody who might be struggling. Sometimes we all just need a little reminder. I know the other day somebody emailed and just said, I know this. I know this, but it was just nice to have a 10-minute reminder that I could watch to say, okay, I can do a little bit better here, right? And that's all this is. That's all Just Keep Parenting is none of us have perfect parenting, perfect caregiving styles, right? And as we had our last class today for the BYU practicum students, that was so amazing to listen to them and have them talk about what they've seen, what kind of growth they've seen in themselves in the last 14 weeks, right? And it was pretty amazing to hear their reflections. And I think as caregivers, as parents, as people who interact with children on a regular basis, that's important for us to do, you know? Pat ourselves on the back every once in a while and say, you know what? This was a hard day, right? We talked to the kids about kissing their brains, right? Tell your brain it did a really good job today because that was really something that you did that was hard. Now that sounds crazy as an adult, but it's still the same, right? We need that little kiss or that tap on the back to say, you did some really hard things today. I was visiting with a friend yesterday who has a 15-year-old, and she just said, I got to have a clone because she's driving me crazy. I texted her back and I said, you know what? You are parenting in a really great way because you're not giving in to everything, and there's consequences with what's going on, even though she may think she doesn't like you right now. But sometimes those consequences, right, are what make us who we are today. And so it's the same thing with us as adults. We just need a little pat on the back to say, you can do hard things, right? And we just need that little reminder to say, oh yeah, I did know that. I've just got to concentrate. I've just got to focus on that today, right? Because there's so many things out there as caregivers, as parents, that we all could do better, but that gets overwhelming and the elephant gets too much to eat. So concentrate on just a little bit. Is it a compliance situation, right, encounter this week, or is it a teaching encounter? And have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for joining.